Hello and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the vlog, welcome back to the car, welcome back to Cornwall, welcome back to autumn. It is October, it's the second week in October and it is 22 degrees Celsius outside. It's pretty warm, surprisingly warm if you will, but that's not what I wanted to talk about, nor did I want to talk about the hottest day being in September, the second week of September, or that summer was wet and cold and we were all huddled around our fires and thinking, ooh, is this the end of times? No, it's not. It's just surprisingly chilly for where we happen to be. So the autumn has rolled around and you would expect, as the leaves fall from the trees, everything to become a little colder, to whip out the hot chocolate and the marshmallows and the pumpkin spice lattes, but no, it is t-shirt and shorts weather, although, I mean, I'm wearing jeans, but then I was born in jeans, so that's just a thing. That's not what I wanted to talk about, though. What I wanted to talk about was two things. Writing stories, because I'm kind of back on that train, and also, I wanted to talk about what happens when you completely biff up the recording of a video. And that happened. That happened actually happened a week ago. So last week I recorded a two-hour video. I recorded Baldur's Gate, and things went wrong. Things went very wrong, because what I normally do is I record, when I'm doing gameplay videos, I record the gameplay on the desktop and then I record the audio on the laptop. Now that might not make sense to some people. You might say, well, why not just do it all on the desktop? But when you have more than one person talking over, say, voice over IP or microphones or whatever, then what can happen is that on your desktop, when you're using, say, OBS, or you're using some other capture software, Fraps maybe, although I don't think anyone actually uses Fraps these days. But whatever you're using, XSplit or whatever, you might be recording the desktop audio, which means you're recording your microphone separately, but all your friends are now talking over the gameplay audio, and it's a nightmare to get everything leveled and compressed. So it's just easier to record audio on the laptop. I have a little folder on the laptop. The little folder on the laptop holds all of the things that I record there. So all of the audio, but all of the film snippets that we use in, say, Stranded Deep, because Stranded Deep has quite a few little film snippets that we add in every now and again. So all of that's done on the laptop. But wait, there's more. Yes, because after I do a recording, what I do is I take a pen drive and I pop it into the side of the laptop and I copy all of the audio files onto the pen drive, transfer it to the PC, and then once it's on the PC, I pop it into Audacity, I compress it, and then I use Spitfish de-esser to remove any sharp sibilants. So what you hear is even, so it's the same volume all the way through. It's also clear, and it doesn't have any sharp S's in it, because if you've ever listened to like local radio and you've heard an advert on local radio and it's someone like smiling, it sounds like they're smiling as they're talking, but the S's that they say is so sharp that it actually melts your earwax. Well, I run a program over that, or a little plugin over that, to make sure that doesn't happen for this channel. And it's been something that I've been kind of conscious of when I've been editing audio. But the thing is, once I've done all that, next time I do a recording, I go to that folder on the laptop and I just clear it out. I just get rid of everything that's in there, because I know I've already processed everything. I know everything is already done. But last time I didn't do it. I recorded Baldur's Gate and I was like, that's a 2-hour recording. It's Friday, I need to go and get dinner, so I did. And completely forgot to take it off the laptop. And I was like, well, it's there. I know it's there, I'll process it later. I didn't. Deleted the audio files. It's a 2-hour recording. But wait, there's even more. Oh yes, there is. Because with Baldur's Gate, the video game, you can quick save. You hit F5 on the keyboard and you quick save. It doesn't save an amount of save games, it saves all of them. So you end up with like hundreds of save game files that you don't really need. So I just went through after that session and cleared them all out up to a point. I cleared them out all up to about halfway through what would have been the recording. And then I found that the audio files were all gone as well. And I was like, bugger. Can I recover them? I've got some recovery software, so I ran it and nope, they're not there. So I had to make a decision. The first hour, I can't re-record because there's no save game. And there's no way to bring back the audio files. So what I can do, because there's a lot of story in that first hour, and there's also, I mean, I still have the game recording, so I can talk over it. But that's not great. I mean, you lose all the surprise and the wonder and all the drama, all the accidental clicks, the misclicks, and everything that comes with that, with a long play. I don't like recording stuff and then narrating over the top of it. It's just not. I don't feel it's not natural. So I figured, okay, let's do this. Let's get all of the story parts of the game back in. Talk over it, so narrate over it, and then as soon as we get to a certain point, then we can just re-record that last hour of footage. So that's what I did with last week's Baldur's Gate video. It was a pain in the butt. It ended up taking, I think, 4 hours longer than normal because I had to go through and edit everything down and then re-record, and then it was something of a nightmare. But these things happen, and it's not the first time that's happened. I have in the past recorded Stranded Deep. I knew I was going away. I was going away for a week. I was probably going away to visit Dad up country, and I was like, okay, I'll pre-record some Stranded Deep. And this was a long time ago. This was like 0.17. This was like the pre-release version of the game, early access version of the game. And I recorded it, but there had been a Windows update. Oh yes, the Windows update. So what happened with the Windows update? Well, there was no game audio. There was absolutely no game audio, and I was like, bugger. All right, fine. So the Windows update had messed things around, and OBS was no longer recording in-game audio. Oh, okay, I think we're okay. So the in-game audio was kaput. So I re-recorded it, and it was 2 episodes, so it's an hour recording. So I re-recorded it. Things were slightly different because, you know, it's an open world survival game. And found that the audio in the recorded game files was okay, but the audio on the laptop I recorded was absolutely useless because it had switched over to the laptop's onboard microphone. And I was like, oh, this sounds like ass. What do I do? Well, the answer is I can record it a third time, delete all the files and record it a third time, or narrate over the top and just try and sound surprised every time we do something. So that's what I elected to do that time. Oh my God, it was a pain in my ass because I had to watch everything back, try and remember what was going on. And like when you're playing a video game, you're kind of in the moment. You are almost hypnotized by what's going on the screen. It's like kind of like driving. You have full control over everything that's going on. When you're watching something back, you have no control over it. It's there in front of you, but you have no control over it, and you just kind of like, it's a very different experience. So I did narrate over the top, and I was just like, this isn't great, honestly. So yeah, sometimes things happen. Usually a Windows update, but sometimes you delete a file and then you have to think on your feet. You have some options, and usually recovery software is not one of them, surprisingly. And I'm quite good at recovering software. I'm quite good at recovering files. I had to be, because in my previous job, people would come in and say, I deleted everything on my pen drive and I've got everything on there that I need. Can you fix it? My favorite one was actually, hey, someone snapped my pen drive in half. they did it deliberately, but they didn't mean to do it and they feel bad about it. Can you get other work off of it? In that instance, I couldn't. It was a weird experience. I was there because they'd torn traces off the PCB, and I was trying to solder wires back onto the PCB where the traces were, and I managed to get it to boot up, but I couldn't get anything actually off of the drive itself. But it was a weird experience because I was using a magnifying glass, I was using a soldering iron, like a variable heat soldering iron, to try and repair this pen drive, whilst people were coming in and saying, printer's out of ink. And I'm like, there are other technicians in the room, go and talk to them. Well, it said to come talk to you, printer's out of paper, and I'm like, guys, oh yeah, can't turn the projector on. I'm like, there are other technicians here, see them, I am soldering. So yeah, back up your data. Back up your data unless you're doing what I'm doing, which is recording, editing, and uploading usually on the same day, with the exception of the 2-hour videos, which take a little longer. Anyway, that's what happened a week ago. It's kind of a long-winded explanation, but it is an explanation, and it's, it's just those things that come with running a YouTube channel. So anyway, that aside, yes, story writing. So at the beginning of the year, I wrote a short story, and it's going to be part of an anthology of short stories, and it's horror. And I'm used to writing science fiction. I'm used to writing cyberpunk, but I am not used to writing horror. And horror, it's fairly simple. I've heard it being described as showing someone what they don't want to see. That's horror. I like that. I like that as an idea. That is a really, really good idea. So, I wrote a story, and it is absolutely something that you don't want to see. It's a creeping psychological horror. So things happen, and then they keep happening, and they keep happening, and you think, oh, but it's going to be okay at the end. No. If it's okay at the end, you just kind of lose everything, right? You lose the sting. So why have build up if you don't have the payoff? Why have the build up if you don't have the money shot? So I was quite happy with what I wrote. It kind of evolved by itself. I had some notes, but it did get slightly bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's still a short story. And then I polished it. I gave it a polish pass, and then I gave it to my sister to read. I gave it to Dad to read, but I didn't get any feedback, I don't think. Actually, I don't know if he did read it. But certainly my sister read it. And she came down, a few weeks ago, in September. And it was her and my other sister, and they were having a conversation about scary stories. Because they like finding scary books, and they're really into horror. So every Christmas I try and find the most terrifyingly scary books that I can find for them. For the sister that came down from up country, one Christmas I got her a book called House of Leaves, which she says is quite terrifying. So I gave her the story, and we were having a chat, and she was saying, yeah, I think she was like, oh, this story that I read, oh, it's really terrifying. It's like an 8 out of 10. And I was like, huh, hey, you know that story I wrote? How would you rate that out of 10? And she said, oh, 12 out of 10. I didn't think anything like that could come from my brother. I didn't think you had it in you. And I'm like, chef's kiss. That is exactly what you want to hear. Because the thing about that story is there's no self-insert. There's no point in the story where you could even self-insert. I wrote it from a technical point of view. I knew that most of the horror audience is going to be female, so I wrote it from a female perspective. I also know that with horror, you're looking for a few things. You're looking for it to be scary, but quite often maybe the heroes get away, and I wanted the will they won't they get away to run all the way to the last sentence, like keep it all the way in. That sort of hope that things can get better. I didn't want blood, I didn't want gore, and I didn't want to put a better, well, I didn't want people to be having sex. Ooh, because from a male point of view, I've read some terrible, terrible sexy times, specifically in sci-fi. It's usually sci-fi where they write some terrible sexy times, and it's just like, this isn't very good. I think Eon by Greg Bear, that has it sort of dumped in the middle of the book. It's like, oh, we've got this rule where nobody gets amorous with each other. That's because we all work together. And then halfway through it's just like, hey, you seem stressed, let's get amorous. But there's no emotion, it's just a stress relief thing. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm reading this. This is nothing to do with the really good sci-fi that's going on either side of these chapters. So yeah, no sexy times, no gore, and whatever the other one was. I don't know. So yeah, you don't really want to write some saw trap thing because, well, it's not fun to read, and quite often it can get quite exhausting if everyone's having their arms pulled off. So psychological horror, yeah, psychological horror is where it's at. You want something that's logical. It needs to be logical, it needs to be realistic, and it needs to be inescapable. But it also needs to push boundaries. There's a boundary that needs to be pushed. You need to go right up to lines, not cross the line, but give it a little stress test, and allow the person to imagine themselves in that scenario without completely going gooey on them. This is going to be interesting. Because of the heat, a lot of people have been out on their push bikes, but these roads have nowhere to pass, really. Yep. So, we'll go past. Whoop. And give them a little flash on the indicators. Or the blinkers if you happen to be American. Wait, what? That's oh. I thought that was a bus stop. It is, but I thought there was like a bus shelter there. There's a house there with no roof on it, and it's just a shell. You know that thing will go for like $750,000 because it just will. Yeah, so horror. Realistic scenarios. People who are reading have to be able to understand the scenario that you're putting them in. So you have to write kind of generally. You can't use localizations. So if you're using words, you might want to consider what an American would read versus what a British person would read. So this is it's an interesting one down here. I might just pull in. There's no one seems to be on the road. Just here. No, not here. No parking overnight. Okay, no, there is a station there. I didn't know that was a farm. Oh, Jesus. Didn't know there's a farm track. That first road that I indicated on, that's the old Helston branch line. I wondered if there was any station left, if you like pulled in, but they fenced off that pull-in and they've opened up the farm track there, so we can't really get a glimpse of the old station platform, which is there. It was a double-sided one because one side was main line and the other side was Helston branch line. Yeah, so localization. Just off the top of my head, pants and trousers are a good one. If you're talking about someone taking their pants off, in America, that's their jeans. In the UK, That's their underwear. If you whip off your pants in public, in America, you're just removing your trousers, and everyone says, "Oh, that's weird." In the UK, you're removing your undercrackers, your grots, your tighty whities. You're whipping them off, and people are going to say, "Call the cops." So certain words are different. There are other words which are completely different. One I heard the other day was diaper and nappy. It was a streamer. It was a streamer because they have kids, and they were like, "Yes, the Canadian streamer. In the UK, they call them nappies." And I'm like, "Yeah, because that's what we call them in the UK." And it's diaper in America. Oh, I can't see that way. Let's go this way. So you have things like zucchini. What's a zucchini? It's a courgette, mate. So if you just have people making like a stew and they're whipping up, they're cutting up a zucchini, people in the UK are just like, we don't know what that is. People in America might be like, yeah, I know, but it's a courgette. So cilantro. I don't know I think cilantro is coriander. So you have to just be like, whatever. They're chopping up a green herb. They're chopping up a green vegetable. I don't even know what diapers would be. They're whipping on their jeans. You know, generalize it as much as possible, because if you can do that, then you get away from things like people saying, I don't really understand. That's the worst thing that can happen when you're writing a story. I don't really understand. I don't understand what's going on. Oh, all right. There is also a concern that I have with things like, when you write multiple stories, things are too similar. So if you start a story and someone's driving a car, and the next story someone's driving a car, people might turn around and say, "Oh, you keep writing the same story." It's like, no, they're different stories. It just happens to be that it's easier for the person to be starting off driving a car because it allows them to get to where they need to be. It's kind of like all Dungeons and Dragons games starting off in the tavern, because it's easier to get all the characters to meet up in a tavern than it is just to say, whatever, you know each other. I have that. So the second story that I've been writing, I have been concerned that I've just been maybe copying the first story a little too closely. There are similarities, but I didn't want that. So I've been like, okay, fine, let's move it to some other location. Other location wasn't working. I just couldn't get it working in my head, and I was like, okay, cool, move it on. Does the main character survive? Do they not? And I was like, yeah, let's have them survive. Oh, let's have some supernatural elements. And I'm like, well, actually, supernatural elements are now, they're okay, but it might be distracting from the story. You might have like the Deus Ex Machina. Instead of a character getting out of a situation themselves, you have some deity or supernatural force saving them, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel rewarding for the reader. There are certain stories that you want to avoid, like it was all a dream. People waking up and it was all a dream, or people waking up and it was just like, it was a dream, and then they wake up and it was, it's another dream. There's a dream within a dream. It's like, that works fine for Inception, but you got to be careful of stuff like that. So, I do not know where everyone's going. And let's allow everyone to cross. Okay. Let's go. Thatch cottage, lovely. So yeah, I've been conscious that I've needed to avoid things. What I've done is, because I've kind of got lost when I've been writing, I've just been like, you know what, I'll leave it on the back burner, let my subconscious work on it. And my subconscious has like been ticking away in the background. I've been very busy. Writing has not been the number one thing. So I've been very, very busy with certain things. And this is weird. Okay. I think they lost one of their extended mirrors on the side of their car. Yeah, writing hasn't really been a thing. YouTube has been taking so much time, especially with the double 2-hour videos every week, which I need to cut back on. But yeah, like leaving things, letting your subconscious work on them has been great. I know I've wanted to write a story. I know what the elements of the story need to be. I know where the character needs to start. I know where they need to go, and I know where they need to end up. I know certain things in the story, but I didn't know if I wanted them to survive or not. I didn't know what the secondary characters were going to be. I didn't even know the location, because the location in my head was like, I came up with one, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working, and I'm like, okay, fine. So why don't we just scrap all of that and just let my subconscious work on it? And it's come up with quite a nice like, I guess, polyfillering in the cracks, or just cementing in the cracks in the notes. So the notes that I had, most of them are still there, and the characters are all still there, but the location had to change, and some of the key elements had to change. And I like adding a little bit of weird, just to make things a little bit uncomfortable. The story is the same, and I'm like, oh, so if we add a little bit of extra je ne sais quoi, we can just add a touch of weird. Now, like going up to boundaries and not crossing them, I'm not going to explore those weird aspects, but I just want to touch them. I just want to touch those weird elements in with the horror, because if you can make people uncomfortable, and I did that with the previous story in a very different way. I just touched on some elements, and it's just like, well, if the reader wants to then extrapolate and expand on that, they can absolutely do that. But if they don't, then they can just gloss over it. It's fine, up to the reader. So yeah, I'm quite happy with where the second story is going. It's taken a long time, but then doing a lot of work. So you know, a lot of things to focus on. Good. You can tell there's a lot of tourism at the moment. Pip pip pip. What's going on? Is there a fly on me senses, my lord? No. So yeah, just touch the weird. Make it a question whether the hero is even going to survive. And yeah, psychological horror rather than ripping people's arms off. Much nicer, much better. And if you can make it, and my goal with all of this is to make it so that people, I'm going to pull in here, so that people are afraid to turn the lights off at night. Just a random pull in, but I've noticed the camera's all misted up. So that happens when it gets hot in the car. I did open it up. I opened it up. So anyway, I'm going to leave it here for the time being. If you like these videos, definitely leave a little like, leave a subscribe. If you want notifications, definitely dingle the bingle. If you don't want notifications, don't click the bell, and I'll tell you what, I'll catch you next time.